further ado, I want to introduce you to the very first speaker this evening. And I want to tell you that I met this woman in April of last year. Karen and I were invited by the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities to the Library of Congress to hear at least 6 wonderful writers of young adult fiction and poetry. And I knew Kwame Alexander, but sitting right next to Kwame Alexander was the wonderful Meg Medina. No relationship at all to Tony Medina, who was also speaking.
We're all related.
When I heard her speak, I went up to her afterwards and I said, could I have your card? Because I was inspired. And she said, yes, and she thanked me. Well, this woman is an award-winning Cuban-American author who writes picture books, books for middle-aged children, and also young adults, fiction. She is a 2-time recipient of the Prix Medal in 2014 and 2016 for her young adult novel, Yaqui Delgado Who Wants to Kick Your Ass, and her children's book, Mango, Abrela, and Me. Her other books include, and they're over there, The Girl Who Could Silence the Wind, Monogros, Girl Far Away, and just recently, hot off the press, Burn Baby Burn. When I called her to invite her to be a speaker at this summit, she said, oh, that's so nice, that's so wonderful. But she said, now, Joanne, maybe you've gotten me mixed up with Meg Medina, the poet, because she knew about Furious Flower. And I said, no, I know the person I want to invite, you. And so she has come all the way from over the mountain in Richmond to James Madison University to read from her newest works. So would you please give a rousing applause to our first speaker, Meg Medina.
I really did say that to her. I said, you've made a mistake. I've got to get that angle. The poet, the Cuban poet, not me. And she looked at me and she had this sweet face. She said, I know. So I want to tell you that I am here to read prose, which is really different. And so I had to take lots of cleansing breaths in my hotel room today because I was thinking, it really is hard to take the stage with 3 cool poets and try to hold your own. So, a little bit about me before I read to you from my new book, Burn Baby Burn. So, I write about families. I write about young women growing up in families. I write about young women growing up in Latino families in the United States, and all the difficult ways that that looks. Many of you maybe have read Yaqui Delgado Wants to Kick Your Ass. People often see that novel as a novel about bullying, and it is about the ways that young women get savaged in school. But it's also about Latina identity and how young Latinas process who they are against all of the competing factors and messages that are out there about them. That's there if you'd like to take a look. But tonight, since my new novel is coming out on Tuesday, I thought I'd bring you with me to Queens, New York in 1977, honey. So if you like spandex, this is for you. Nora Lopez is the main character. She's 17 this year, 1977 in Queens. She lives with her mother, Mima, and her brother, Hector, in a building. For those of you who don't know, New York City in 1977 was a really scary place. Maybe Tony can attest to this.
I loved it.
Yeah. And nobody ever forgets it if you lived it, because here were just a few things going on. Son of Sam, we had a serial killer who was murdering young couples in their cars. The city was broke, flat broke. If you were a teacher, you ran to the bank on Friday with your paycheck because you weren't sure that you would have money. Race relations had bottomed out. The city was burning. Sometimes residents burned buildings, sometimes the building owners, in order to get insurance money, would torch buildings to the ground. This chapter is chapter 3. It's early on in the novel, and here's what's happened so far. The murders have started to happen, but nobody's quite put together that it's one person yet. Hector, her brother, has just stormed out of the apartment a little earlier. He wanted $10 to go see the Ramones at CBGB's, which was a punk club in the Bowery. Mima, whose job, her hours have been cut, didn't have the money, and Nora refused to lend it. And he's been missing for a few hours. So this is where we start. And again, it's a love letter, really, to Latina girls. Sometimes after school, Hector rolls up pages from the newspaper and lights them. He holds the edges until I'm sure the flames will catch his sleeve, and then he drops them out the window. The first time I saw him, I ran over yelling, "Stop!" And after all these years listening to Mr. Mack's fire stories, I was worried. But standing there next to him, I could see what he liked. The flame balls spun in the air like fiery birds being consumed. They turned to harmless ash before they ever hit anything below. I don't know if Mima knows about Hector's flame birds. Probably not. But would she mind? It's hard to know. Mima's tough to read sometimes, but she says the same about us. She complains. She can't understand what we say if we speak English too fast. She can't tell if David Bowie is a man or a woman. Last year, when she sat me down in the kitchen for what I thought was going to be the big sex talk, she told me instead that drug use would lead to my life of prostitution on Times Square. That very specific piece of information might have been helpful if I actually ever bothered to get high. It's Hector who partakes, not me. I'm too cheap to waste money on weed. But how Mima sees Hector is what's strangest of all. She lives here, doesn't she? She has ears and eyes. She deals with Hector's foul mouth, his bratty fits, and yet she gushes to her friend Edna all the time about him. How clever he is, how handsome, how adventurous, how unusual. Mi madre. Okay, fine, he's guapo, even with the cystic zits. But she's leaving out a few important things that might dampen the review, if you ask me, like his habit of treating her like crap. Men are reckless, Nora, she likes to tell me. They're born that way, impulsive. But eventually, they find a good woman and outgrow it. You'll see. It's a nice fantasy, I suppose. Although why she's so charitable to men, I'll never know. It's not like Papi did her any favors. I was almost 4 the day Papi's razor went missing from the toothbrush rack and his big shoes weren't crowding the front door. I remember that night because Hector, he pitched an epic fit, and he tore the linoleum from the floor with his fingers. We still have the holes near the door. Mima stayed in bed for a long time after that too. But it's no use talking to Mima about real life. She just won't participate in it. Take her stories about her life back in Cuba before El Desgraciado Fidel. She said it was about familia, about freedom, about beautiful palm trees, the simple life. I don't argue. But I can't help but notice she never mentioned that they nearly starved to death during the Depression, that her father shot himself in a field, that all they ate was cornmush harina. That's perfection. I'm thinking all this when I flip on the TV news, hoping Hector will come through the door finally on his own before Mima starts in on me, the way she always does when he's wandering. A yearbook picture of a pretty brunette flashes before us. The news anchor fills us in. The university co-ed was gunned down early this evening in Forest Hills. She's been identified as 19-year-old Virginia Voskerichian, who was discovered near Dartmouth Street, her purse untouched. Witnesses report hearing screams. I listen uneasily as the camera pans the crime scene. And it's like deja vu. This is only a couple of blocks from where that other girl got murdered in January. Cops are lingering around, they're smoking. A pair of boots sticks out from the bottom of a sheet on the ground. I look over my shoulder at Mima, who's staring at the screen, trying to cobble the story together from across the room. Señora, ampáranos. She crosses herself and starts to sweep again. There are devils all over the city. The bristles sound like someone sharpening knives. She's been cleaning for hours, her favorite thing to do when she's nervous. So far, she's cleaned the baseboards. She's wiped the plastic slip covers on the sofa. She's scrubbed the bathroom. The whole damn place stinks of Clorox. Filth, not poverty, it's a sign of low people, she always says. As chilly as the apartment is getting, streaks of perspiration still run down her neck. Finally, she leans the broom against the wall and peers out the window. This whole city is going crazy, she says. Y tu hermanito is out there. Her jaw quivers. Did he take a coach? I don't remember. What if something happens and he's cold? What if he doesn't have spare change to call home? I ignore her. And what is this fascination with that screaming music? Why are a bunch of grown men jumping and screaming that way? Dime! Pass. I turn up the TV and pretend to concentrate as the TV news drones on. I can't stop thinking somehow about this girl's ragdoll body, the police standing over her, the strange angle of those stylish views. I'm thinking too of the decoy cops who might be sitting down the block right now. Maybe I should be worried. Mima sits down. For a second, I think she's calming down, but just then, a fire truck goes by. The spinning lights fill our kitchen with as the siren wails. She crosses herself and crumbles again. Mima believes in omens after all. Ave Maria Purísima. What if he's dead? There's a murderer out there. Oh, I give up. She will not quit until he's home, so I flip off the TV, pull a sweatshirt on over my pajamas, and stick my bare feet into sneakers. Does anybody care that I am going to go out to find my brother with said murderer on the prowl? No, señores, they do not. Try the roof first, Mima says, as I slip out the door. Now a hunter looks for tracks, and Hector has left some clues on the roof. Old cigarette butts, an X-Men comic, beer cans, but nothing's fresh, and there's no sign of him. Damn. I cross the rooftop and peer over the ledge to the street below. The moon is half full tonight, so I can see pretty well. But unfortunately, Hector is not walking home from either direction. At least the unmarked car is still under the trestle. The cops are nearby. I head back inside dejected. This leaves only one logical place to look. Sergio's den of darkness. Now I have to run all the way around to the back of our building and down a flight of concrete steps to reach it. It makes sense that Sergio lives underground like a rodent. He's got the beady eyes, those yellow teeth. I knock and wait, hopping from one foot to the other to keep warm. Sergio's car is parked right across the street, so I know he's home. These days, he thinks he's big shit driving that Monte Carlo, which I'm pretty sure he funds with his side business of selling nickel bags outside the Satin Lady Lounge. He's always peeling out so people will ogle at him. I try my best to avoid him, but I still run into him on the block every once in a while when he's lugging his toolbox to somebody's apartment to make a repair. He always tries to chat me up. Nora, can't you say hello? I knock again, and that's when I hear a whine. From down here, I can only see the legs of anyone who might walk by on the street above me. But there's a dog sniffing at me from the sidewalk. It's that wiry stray that we call Tripod, on account of his having only 3 legs. We all sort of feed him, but no one knows who owns him. When it's bitter cold, he hangs out near the dryer vents, which is how he survived that bitch of a winter we just had. But the rest of the time, he likes to wander. Hey, buddy, I tell him, what's the matter? He perks his ears and looks off into the distance, growling. And then he hops off, spooked by something or other. Is somebody coming along the street? It suddenly occurs to me that I'm boxed in down here at the bottom of Sergio's stairway. Excuse me, miss, a stranger might say, and then, pow, my brains will be splattered on this door. Sergio! I bang my fist, open up! The door finally flies open, and Sergio is barefoot and in jeans. He's got a pigeon chest and hairy nipples. It takes a second for him to recognize me, and then he breaks into that oily grin. Nora, he says. He leans an arm on the door frame. How can anyone have that much pit hair? I wonder. He lowers his voice and coos. What brings you to me? Is my brother here? I'm too shaken to be polite, especially since he's also ogling my boobs. I wrap my arms around myself tighter. It's late. My mother wants him home. His grin doesn't change as he puts an unfiltered camel to his lips and lights up. You always look so uptight, Nora. You know that? You never relax, and you know you'd be pretty if you smiled once in a while. He picks at his tongue absently and spits a thread of tobacco at my feet. There's stuff to help you with that if you like. I glare at him and call into the apartment. Hector! I have no plan B, of course. If Hector isn't here, I'll have to go home empty-handed, and then what? Mima will end up in the loony bin once and for all, like she's always threatening. Hector! Take it easy, Nora. Sergio motions for me to come inside. He's in my room. The place smells like a bag of Fritos. A brown velour couch with a big burn mark on the cushion is pushed up against the wall. Sergio holds up his ringed fingers and points towards his bedroom in the back. For a second, I stay put. What if he's lying? Luckily, the buildings on this block are all the same. The layout of the apartment is almost exactly like ours, except that the bathroom's on the opposite wall. So I walk backward, keep my eyes on it. When I reach the bedroom door, I push it open with my foot. Hector! There's no answer, but I spot him. He's lying right beside the unmade bed, headphones on, drumming with imaginary sticks against his knees. His eyes are closed. Relief floods through me, but honestly, I don't know whether to hug him or kick him in the gut. I stand over him and lift up the ear pads to get his attention. Hey, time to go. Hector blinks. His eyes are glassy. Shit, he's stoned. His expression reminds me of the day I taught him how to float at Rockaway Beach. I held my arms under his back, promising him that he wouldn't sink if only he put his head back and believed me. But finally, he lay back. I'm sorry, it took all afternoon for him to believe me, but finally, he lay back and looked almost peaceful. I can feel Sergio watching us from the doorway. Hector isn't budging, like maybe his pride is pressing him into the floor. Please, I add quietly. He grins up at the magic word and tosses the headphones on the bed. This song sucks anyway. He hops to his feet and grabs his jacket from the mess of sheets. Later, he says to Sergio as he heads out the door. I try to squeeze past Sergio, but he steps out. Nora, he whispers, reaching for my hand, and I pull it away, watching as my brother disappears up the steps. Stay away from him, I say. Sergio grins. He came to visit me, remember? Leave him alone, Sergio. Then I run to catch up with Hector. We don't say a word as we step inside the lobby. I let Tripod hop in behind us, hoping that Manny won't kick him out from the hiding spot near the mailboxes until morning. Our place is on the top floor, so it's steep, a steep climb with lots of time to think. There are a million things I could say to Hector as we go from landing to landing, our footsteps echoing against all those closed doors. That it's dicey to get wasted with the likes of Sergio, that he shouldn't treat Mima like shit, that a killer just shot a 19-year-old girl on her way home, that I'm sorry that I didn't give him the money for the Ramones. But neither one of us says a word. Instead, we step back inside the apartment. Mima's in the kitchen frying an egg, although it's past midnight. Hector doesn't say a thing to her. He just pulls open the sparkling refrigerator and starts to root inside. Mima turns off the flames and slides a chipped plate onto the table. Eat something. We're still growing, hijo, she says. And then, without a word to me, she heads off to bed.